Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, Mike. That was nice. I don't like to stand behind a barrier when I'm speaking to you all. Thank you for coming in. I can assure you my presentation is going to be an equivalent to a caffeine boost. And thank you for breaking the ice. I saw some smiles, and they will continue to have that throughout my presentation. I can assure you that. Well, I would like to start with saying that I would like to first know who my customers are. And I would request you all to please be very, very honest and put a show of hands. For those who have more than 4 or 5 employees, first of all, how many entrepreneurs do we have? How many of you all amongst you all own your own business? How many of you all are business owners? Okay, from what I see in a quick survey of the room, I can say we're talking to 70% of the room full of entrepreneurs. So quite a relevant listening audience. Another question I would like to ask is how many of those 70% who put their hands up in the audience have more than 4 or 5 employees? That's down to 10% of the room. So we can safely say that 60% of the room are a small or bespoke organization, respectfully so. Nothing wrong with that, just to let us know amongst each other what we're talking about. So getting on with that, and those who know the relevance of that have understood what that was for. A quick review of what this paper is about. It's going to touch upon 2 aspects, the 2 questions I just asked. It's going to touch about branding, it's going to touch upon partnership and SWOT analysis, and a very important word which most of you all ought to know by now, the KISS. There is a slide on that. I will not speak any more about it. All right. For the wannabe entrepreneur, which most of you all would have had a thought of, what was in your minds before you all started your company? There were 2 absolutely very important aspects which everyone ought to have considered and when you're conceiving the idea of being an entrepreneur. One is to set up a company of what the 10% have put up the hands of making an incorporation, more than 5, 7, 10, 20, hundreds of people employed. Or a bespoke company, or very much what in the surveying world it's called, and it's said in a rather non-glorifying way, one-man band. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong. I think it is just another business model, another mindset, and another way of going about it. So it has its own problems, its own challenges, and incorporation has its own. So I would say whoever is looking at this as a differentiation as being better or worse, it's not so. It's just another mindset. So keep that at the back of your mind. And it is important to understand when an entrepreneur starts deciding to go on his own, he is definitely that goldfish which is setting itself out from the rest. It is a challenge. There's nothing wrong in being in that pond full of other goldfish, but you're definitely out of the ordinary automatically. So that has to be in the mind of an entrepreneur all the time whenever there is a mindset on it. And a very important consideration too, that is what I've written down, that if you want to go quickly, go alone. It's a fantastic way to get on. Your turnover is what you want it to be, 1, 2 people getting on. But if you want to go the distance, in the sense go far, when I say far means far and big, it will take time. It is a process. It has to be conceived. The idea of a twin or a triplet is conceived 9 months before it actually happens. In the same way, we have to look at it from a perspective that it is at conception that you have to plan it. It doesn't mean that it cannot be done much later. You suddenly may decide after a couple of years, now I want to take on a few more people and I want to become a 10-man team. Fine with it. Now the funny bits start. Now, partnerships are a consideration when you are starting, and there is a reason why I've put down. It is sometimes a pain, which probably some of you all are going through. You can see the first word up there, or you can be in the comfort room. It might be a pleasure. What I'm trying to get at is Partnerships are meant to be for a reason. It is something that one has to consider it being either a priority or an essential need. I have a fantastic business idea, but my pockets are empty. It is very essential for me to take a partner on who might either fund me, or I might have a business idea which might need another set of competencies. I'm a master mariner with command experience, and if I start up, I might think I don't have the money, I don't think I'm going to recruit, but I want to become an incorporation. I might take on a chief engineer as my partner. So we are a master chief engineer team. I do not know. Whatever the thought is, examples of partnerships are to be considered absolutely upfront as soon as the business idea is conceived. As soon as you decide whether it is a bespoke or an incorporation, you have to start thinking at that stage, saying that if one of your partners is lazy, if one of the partners has a short-term vision, saying that I'm going to invest in this company for 3 months, 3 years, 5 years, and then walk out with a lot of money and we'll value it again and come out, your partnership and your company is going to be handicapped with that same intention. So it has to be kept in mind. It is sometimes, like I said, a partnership instead of a partnership. Two aspects when you are talking about the next challenge that comes to mind, that is, where do I get my money from? There are two ways of looking at sourcing money, and the cost of that sourcing, cost of money, is completely different, how it is going to be recovered. Now, cost of money where debt is concerned, you have to understand, whoever is offering you a debt is going to sell your house, your family jewels, and everything else that you own to recover it back, and he's going to get after you if you're not able to pay him within a certain time that you're going to promise, that you have promised him to pay. However, in an equity, you would want to look at it from a perspective where the guys will share the risks. If your company goes in a loss, he's going to take a hit, he's going to absorb the loss. If the first year's turnover is, let's say, $20,000 gone down the drain, he's going to be sharing 10 if he's a 50% stakeholder. So it is very important to understand the differentiation, whereas if bank gives you a loan and gives you a debt, they're going to come after the 20,000. Not only that, they're going to come after the 10% that they're giving you for business as well. So they're going to come after all of that money and recover it come what may. Okay, now, when you are starting off with that, obviously at that point you have already dreamt of your company. Yeah, the company that you are wanting to conceive, the baby that you want to bring into this world, and like every government loves small businesses, one-man shows or bespoke companies, because there are so many such babies born. Dubai loves it. It's known to be a SME hub of the world. So the government will design taxation, it will design assisting existing entrepreneurs, setting up companies, shareholding, incorporation. All this will become an easy thing. They'll give you a tax holiday like that given in Singapore. When we set up in Singapore, we were told that 2 years you're not going to get any tax. You're going to get a tax holiday for that, so that you get on with it. So important thing to understand is, before you start moving, you're having that vision of where you're going, and without a long-term goal, at the time of starting, you're going nowhere. The more important aspect of that consideration, you have to understand that you have to conceive the idea with the perspective that you can alter. After a year, you can add in more funds. You can bring in a partner. That option is always open. It's not the end of it, but you have to think about it. You have to dream about that. You have to put those waypoints along the way. Being a navigator, I'll talk on waypoints, where to alter course and where the wheel over positions are. But I would suggest that it has to be thought about. It can be a blur idea of you go in here after 1 year, 2 years, and things like that, but written down and documented, please. Now, swotting is important. At this point of time, I'll take a pause and I'll ask another question to y'all. Are y'all considering that the business plan is missing at this stage? I'm going in the chronological sequence of a mindset of a business, how you would go in. Would you think that a business plan would have come before the SWOT or after the SWOT? How many of y'all are voting for before? 10%. Wrong answer, because the SWOT analysis is already up. It was a giveaway, actually. I'll tell you where I've read this from or where it is coming from. Business plan comes much later. If you're writing a business plan before you do a SWOT, you are probably not doing the right thing. I don't say that. It's written in the management book. You'll see the bibliography in the end. You can look up those books. Don't come after me, please. Okay, now, why is a SWOT analysis important? A SWOT analysis is important because without knowing what your strengths and weaknesses are, you cannot start planning. You cannot write a business plan. You cannot do anything. If you don't do a market survey, you do not know where you're going, how much to invest, what's the gap, how much of the market share you can tap in when you start off. You have to go and think about where the strengths are and what I can do to correct my weaknesses. And that's, I think, a very important consideration. And the stages of SWOT, you can see there, it is whom to involve. A SWOT analysis could be done by your father, your father-in-law, your child, could be anybody. You can never know what you can pick up. You can give it to your customer or wannabe customers on back of whom you would want to start your business, who promise you that I'm going to support you if you start up, I'm going to give you the first few businesses. Even that person can help you with the SWOT. Help means he can just do it for you and he can plug in what he thinks of the market. As many perspectives come in, that much better, in my view. That is what I've read while researching this paper. Creating a simple, clear action plan after doing the SWOT is, I think, the most important aspect. A SWOT is like a kite without a string. I was going to say a man without a beep, but it is important to consider that a SWOT analysis has to be hand in glove with an action plan, and that action would be probably with a corrective measure for your weaknesses, or to hide your weaknesses, or to make an elevator pitch on your strengths rather than talking about your weaknesses or worries when you're making a pitch. Nevertheless, it's not enough. One slide is not enough on SWOT. It is probably the heart of your business idea. And I can tell you, every time the market dynamics change, I do not know how many businessmen here did another SWOT after 2008 when the shipping market had its problem. In fact, every market had its problem. But that was a good year, maybe 2009, not 2008, to do another SWOT. If you haven't done, we didn't do it until 2011, when suddenly, when we were talking about things that we have to alter courses, different waypoints where we had planned out, we realized, oh my God, we should have done all these corrections 2 years ago. So if the market now, which is going to pick up in the next 2 years, that is what is next year is written off, so they say the business gurus, but 2 or 3 years from now, the recession clouds will be lifting. Please take this home with y'all. Please start thinking of how you are going to grow internally. Please start thinking of that. My good friends from Dubai are here. If you have not done or not thought of it already, you are going to miss the boat when the time is right. Getting on with the SWOT analysis, a quick touch on the other aspects. The results of the SWOT have to be different every time by every individual's, every landmark. You can do it as many times. You will definitely discover new things every time you do. I can assure you, and I've read in the books that I've prepared these slides from, the most undone thing in the business world. You've got a thing going, you carry on, you don't bother about SWOTing again and again. If you've not done it, you're not the only one who's lethargic about it, or the business, the idea doesn't pop up. It is an epidemic in the entrepreneurs world. All right. Now, when you're doing a SWOT, this slide has been poached from the internet, and it is important that a SWOT analysis is made of zillions of such questions, and some of them are written here. How do you do that? How do you leverage your strength? How do you hide your weakness or minimize your threats of the thing? A competitor may not be a threat. He may be a collaborator. We've got a fantastic thing going in UAE as IIMS, and most of those who sit on the committee are all competitors. But I think there is a fantastic sense of collaboration. Although we fight for the the same pound of flesh when it's out there to be had, but we have a certain sense of collaboration when we come together and sit together. So your competitors may not be a threat, they might be actually a strength if you synergize with them. That's when you have to come down to writing a business plan after you've thoroughly bashed and battered your SWOT analysis and written down your action plan. If you are planning to do, because most of the people who say, I've got a business idea, the next thing an investor says, where's your business plan? And then you go and look up a template on the internet and then you say, let me write down a business plan. Wrong move to do. That has to be done much, much later. So I've been told in my management studies and in the books I've read. Okay, so what does the plan comprise of? What does the business plan comprise of? It is about having the initial vague idea of where you're going with it. Your goals, your return of investments, your break-even points have to be clearly coming out of your plan. Even if you're using your savings, you have to consider as a debt that you're giving the company. And you have to tag an interest along with it so that you know that the cost of money, of your own money, that you have invested yourself in a business, if you're a one-man show or a bespoke company, has to be recovered back from the business earnings. If you don't look at it this way and look at it any which other way, your business plan is half done. Have a clear budget for expansion. If you're planning to become a company, a sizable company, you have to have a good idea about where you're going to recruit and which professionals you're recruiting. You might be a master mariner with, let's say, tanker experience. You might want to take a master with bulk carrier experience, or a chief engineer, or a naval architect, or somebody who understands yachts. So you have to have a clear idea of how you're going to go forward if you're going to grow into a company that you have conceived to be an incorporation. The worst thing a startup can do is to outsource. I've said this in the Chennai conference. I say this again. If you're saying that I'm a company, I have got global reach, and I've got offices all over the world, in the first year you start, we've got affiliates, we've got associates, it might not walk the distance. Everybody knows where to find affiliates these days. Everybody knows how affiliates work. Outsourced resources professionally is not considered as resources. This is my view. It is a perfect way to untrain the trained, and I am not a fan. This is my personal view, by the way. The other thing, like the SWOT analysis, a business plan has to be put into action immediately. It has a lifespan. It is that fresh chicken you pick up from the chiller room in the supermarket. If you don't go and cook it up the next day or just let it be for the 2 or 3 days, it's of no use. A business plan has a life. It is a breathing, living document. You have to definitely action it immediately. If you keep it on the shelf for a month, dynamics have changed, market has moved on. There might be aspects in the business plan which have probably may not be relevant anymore, because there are timelines, there are cost of money, there is all these things which is directly proportionate to time. So it is very important that you have to get it actioned. That's not Irish, Peter. Like pajamas and papadums have entered into the Oxford. If this word comes in, I will take ownership for it. Saying that, the don'ts. What do you not do? Take financial commitments before a business can afford it. Failing to agree the details of the scope with a customer or terms. I had put down terms and conditions on our website after the 6th month. As Constellation Marine, we own up, and we were told this by our PI guys when we took up the cover and when they were reviewing what terms they are using, and then I had written to John Lawrence and compared the two and that put up. But that was, from there it came out, because if you start up the business with everything and hey-ho, you might get it wrong in the first 6 months if you don't have the terms in place, if you don't understand what you're doing, or don't put your caveats and CYA is not done well. You can get into trouble. Okay. Making no room for future expenses is another big one. These have all got a top ranking in the mistakes entrepreneurs do. So that's where we've got this information out of. And they say that they have not made provision for future expenses, or a one-man band who has a perception of having a recruitment done in the second year starts buying his first new car after he starts his business. He starts going for long holidays, saying that I'm stressed out, I've been working like a beep all year long. These are the common mistakes that people do. You do not budget not for expenses, but also for time. How are you going to not burn out? And then the other aspect, and the most important thing where startups fail or entrepreneurs usually fail, is credit controls. And it's become suddenly from double-digit priorities, it has zoomed into the top 3 failure causes for entrepreneurs or existing businesses in the last 5 years. The ranking on this last point was not at all to be considered prior 2008. Post 2008, this has become a very, very important consideration, and cash flow issues, cash flow problems has sunk enough businesses. So be very wary. It's a very relevant and now thing to do. Now comes the other very important aspect of it, because a lot of people start doing a lot of things together and start looking at things more complicated, with a complicated approach than actually it is. It is not at all important to make your life complicated, at least not in the first couple of years or first few years. You have to keep it short. The temptation is to shout out about your story, how great it is, how well the company is going, how you're planning your next waypoint. I'm going to, take on 3 more people next year. The business is going. It might not be your best friend. You got to pick your strongest point out of your SWOT analysis and stick to it like a glue. It is specialization. It is getting your best pitch out there. People do not have attention span. They have a very, very judgmental view. If you tell them too many things, you will lose them. They will start getting confused. If you're an engineer, I'm an engineer, I know this best, and that's my pitch. By the way, I've got a team which also does this, that, and the other, would be a better way to put it across. In my view, at least in the Middle East, where I've been living for 11 years, I think that is a kind of a mistake people make, where they say, I need to get into agency, I need to charter ships, and then I also need to do some surveys, because I don't get a ship under my agency between 2 months, 3 months, I don't get one. So start doing some surveys in the meantime. You have become the tributaries of the Mississippi River. You're going to spread thin and wither off. If you are got your core competency, be the stream of the river, you'll go the distance. That's the point I'm trying to make, and that's to keep it short and simple. Now, my personal favorite here, the branding of your firm. Again, if you're not looking at it at the conception, you are probably going to wither off. You have to brand it. You have to position yourself and the company where you want to be. There are different stages. You can look at it from different aspects. And branding is nothing more than that little picture at the back of it. It's all perception. If Coca-Cola can put out an ad and say, "Open happiness," when a Coke can is shown on the TV being opened, and people are perceiving that, what are they thinking? Are they really believing the audience would think that if you open a Coca-Cola bottle, you'll really open happiness? It's a lot of crap. You would think if you're the Lloyd's Library, and I speak about it to marine surveyors, but it is about perception. What I'm trying to say is branding is a very conscious aspect people have to keep in mind. And your name, people use, Nick, I know you'll be looking at it with a frown, but nothing wrong in using your name as your company name, but your name has to bloody well be recognized enough, which, with all due respect, Nick Sloan I'm talking about, your name is out there, so Sloan Marine probably would be a good brand identity, because people know who was behind the largest power buckling that we've had, saying that I'm using your example, but it is something that people have to be conscious about, that you have to be recognized to add value to the brand image of your company. At the end of the day, the business is comprised of a team and not just a single individual in it. Even if you're one bespoke company, one-man band, you have to understand, without you knowing, there might be a team behind you. Your bank guy is your team. Probably whoever's helping you out with part-time accounts, or even if you're doing it, that person becomes your team. The guy who cleans up your car or probably gets food to you is your or supermarket guy. You need his cooperation because you're spending a far longer period of time away. So you have a team, even if you're a small company. So you have to recognize that and identify that. Now, I've given you some examples here of brand histories, and we are in one of the legacies of that. There is, it might be fine prints, you might not be able to see this. This was taken off the Super Brands coffee table book, and I was pleasantly surprised to find this in the Super Brands. The Lloyd's building itself is a branding legacy, and look at the pitch they're making. Keeping it short and simple, hoarding on their most niche aspect, where the world takes risks. Nothing complicated. That's the slap that you get, and that's your elevator pitch. The second most important branding example I want to put across to you all is a fellow organization which also does surveying, the Royal Institute of Surveyors, or Chartered Surveyors, sorry. They do land surveys, building surveys. They've been going since 1792. 1792. The fine print's there in the slides that you'll be getting. You'll get the whole brand image. But this one is dedicated to Mike. Mike, we want you to make IIMS into an organization bigger than RICS.
I accept the challenge.
That's great. Now, a bit about what they have written. In 1922, RICS said in that round, black round thing there, they've said that they've recruited Irene Barclay as the first lady surveyor for the Chartered Institute of Surveyors. Now, it's a fantastic thing to say today, that when you talk about equality and gender equality, we give out awards to the lady surveyor, most prominent lady surveyor in the Middle East. We've been going with these awards for the last 6 years. This year will be the 6th year we'll be giving the award out. So what I'm trying to say is, gender equality in a perceived man's world of maritime, particularly so surveying, is a fantastic branding statement to make, and they've used it. I'm glad that the synergies are matching, and they've said that we've started doing that way back in 1922, where there would be probably some inequalities people might perceive. The other one, they're saying that they've got in their team people like Captain James Cook, Walt Disney, Abraham Lincoln. These were all members of the Chartered Institute. Does that make a Chartered Institute good just because they would have probably given them honorary memberships? I don't know. But they've made that pitch. What they're trying to do is they're going to co-brand themselves as an organization with big names and well-known personalities. What I'm saying is there's a lot of energy in this particular aspect. So do think of it. If you all have to relook and re-spend on rebranding your companies, I think it will be money very, very well spent. Yes. Yeah, second last slide. Okay, the do's. There are some important aspects which you have to consider, and it's all written there. You have to constantly keep closing the gaps. New gaps will rise. You will be looking at newer challenges. Business is a dynamic creature. It will keep moving, it will keep talking, it will have its own problems. You have to keep up to date, and you have to keep challenging yourself. So that's a little bit about to do. And the last slide, before I finish, I must say that there is a common tendency for people to get on with it and keep going. I am a victim of it. I have to keep telling myself, slow it down. That's why I'm doing and ending it with saying that it is very important to that you appreciate that you can't keep rattling away everything at a single go. You can't be handling too many things, juggling too many balls. You have to slow it down. It's been my mission for the last 2 years, and thanks to my wife, she's dragged me by my collar for yoga classes and it's done miracles to my life. I still talk fast though. My special thanks to Captain Darius Antia. My surveying knowledge was practically nothing when I was in command on ships. He found me out. He offered me a job in Sharjah 11 years ago, and I have been extremely grateful, and I never leave an opportunity to thank him. And John and Alan Brink, thank you very much for mentoring me along the way in the last few years, and please keep going at it. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for a patient listen. Appreciate, I don't know if any of what I said made sense, but you all will find us on any of those 4 websites, and any questions, coffee, or over to Mike. Thank you very much.
Thank you.